back, and I'm actually really excited to be talking with Annie here. We did a sort of prep session beforehand. How are you doing? Annie's only about 6 months into the sort of job running Be Tomorrow Ventures. She'll share a little bit more about her background and what BAT does. But I found it really exciting. It was probably the most interesting sort of prep session, just about that background and what you're trying to bring to Be Tomorrow, because it's been a great program. So perhaps you can give a little bit more.
Absolutely happy to, and thank you for the kind introduction. So I guess I'm BTV's new MD. I've been in the role for about 6 months, and as we spoke about, I guess my profile and previous experience makes me a little bit less traditional to be the MD of a corporate venture capital fund. My background is primarily in sales, direct-to-consumer e-commerce. I spent 10 years building that sort of expert path, and then as kind of big companies do, they put you into a new challenge, and I did HR for about 18 months, and then I left that to start a role at BAT that was in the cannabis division, which was a bit of everything, and now I'm here looking after BAT's corporate venture capital fund. I think it sounds a little bit random, but the golden thread throughout all my experience has been primarily large global CPG companies who have had transformation agendas, innovation challenges that they've been trying to crack. So if you think about e-commerce, if you think about cannabis, they're all sort of new divisions and new parts and potential revenue streams for those large corporates. And it's the exact same challenge here at Be Tomorrow Ventures, which is the corporate venture capital arm of BAT, British American Tobacco. Legacy tobacco business looking to reform and transition to a smokeless future. So it's the exact same challenge, albeit in a slightly different context and setting. Unlike, I think, some of the people on the panel, I've not had to travel too far to be here. I'm London-based, so my commute was minutes rather than several hours. And I live here in London with my husband and my dog.
Wonderful. Well, thanks, Annie. And like you say, the first 6 months, what have been your priorities?
Yeah, so it's been a busy 6 months. I think a new MD, a new leadership change in any team reflects a period of transition and a chance to stop and reflect. And what we noticed was that BTV has been in existence since 2020, so the fund and the team are in their 5th year, and substantial change probably hasn't been made. I sort of see 3 eras of Be Tomorrow Ventures. Sort of in the beginning, and we had our first MD and the team were setting up. It was all about going fast. So largely we were sort of going alone, and that was the right thing to do at that time. We were moving fast, setting up a brand new division, a brand new team in a large, slow-moving corporate. Then I think when my predecessor Juan started a couple of years ago now, he was all about sort of swinging that pendulum back to perhaps closer to BAT. Both were the absolute right things to do at that moment in time, but I think where we are now in BAT's journey, BTV's journey too, it's probably a bit of both. I think we need to absolutely transform BAT. No surprises to anyone in this room that the cigarette is in decline. So we absolutely need to change and transform, and you don't do that by doing the same thing. You have to do things differently. But equally, part of that transformation journey, especially for BAT, is bringing that corporate on the journey. So sort of that Goldilocks approach of we want to go far, so we have to go together. So it's an interesting balance between learning from those things we did previously and trying to now right fit that for where the business is. And then I guess since I've joined as well, the companies have made a pretty strong commitment that by 2035, 50% of our revenues will be from what we call smokeless products.
Wow.
So that's the little nicotine pouches that we have, heated tobacco sticks and vapor. And we've attempted to do that primarily organically with a few kind of bolt-on M&A things that have proved successful. And that's, in the past sort of 4 years, achieved really strong growth. But actually, if you look at our numbers for last year, that growth is slowing. So I think it's a really interesting position now for BTV, who historically haven't really been focused on transforming the smokeless nicotine business. It's now, right, we can't do this ourselves. We need to look elsewhere. And M&A absolutely plays a role, but we also need to think beyond that. I think what's beyond sort of the next 5 to 10 years, and our team has been really tasked with that, and I think it's a really exciting position to be in. The team have done a great job at educating our stakeholders, so they're aware that it's not oh cool, BTV can invest and we'll get the returns in 2 years. So I think we're kind of building, and it's really exciting, but certainly that's the priority, has largely been internally focused for the first 6 months. So For those of you who might follow BTV, you won't have seen a lot of investment activity. What the message I've been giving to the team is, right, we're going to go slow in order to go fast. Let's get ourselves set up for this kind of new era of BAT, new era of BTV. We're looking at our investment mandate and making sure that's aligned to the transformation agenda of BAT, the right team, making sure we've got the right kind of functions in place, the right portfolio growth support, the right people. We've had the privilege of bringing someone new to the team, Karen, who's sitting in the audience from Distill Ventures. So again, bringing in that outside expertise. And then also really hammering home the value that BTV can bring to BAT. Because we're looking to partner with colleagues on the journey, we need to help them understand what corporate venturing is. And of course, they're not going to be experts. It's a really complex topic, as I'm learning, but they need to know enough to really partner with us and also to allow us this breathing space to execute. So I think I've been lucky enough that I've got a super team who are so all over the day-to-day and can manage and keep the team running, stuff, all the plates spinning, while I've sort of had more of a chance to kind of zoom out and think, right, what's the operating model? What are the priorities? What's the resourcing? How do we better connect with the business? And I've probably taken that approach as well because my background isn't technical. It's sort of more on the strategy and structure side. So it's nice to have that balance and the team to support whilst also me looking at those things. So I guess hopefully the plan is to have that all wrapped up by the end of July, and then you'll start to see BTV being a bit more active in the space. We had a commitment for Fund 2, our second fund, which is 200 million in, we announced that in January. Was it December? I think it was December. We haven't been active there yet for all the reasons I said, but I think once we are, we're going to move really fast.
Well, that's really exciting. I think it'd be interesting to see what types of companies you will want to receive and what sort of applications and co-investors you will get. But perhaps you can say a little bit more about the sort of priorities or why BAT wanted to continue with CVC through this period, how important it will be for that transformation journey.
Yeah, and I think I'll probably quote a conversation I had with our chief legal officer a few weeks ago, where when I sort of was speaking to him about BTV, his first answer was, Annie, it's inconceivable that a FTSE 10 company doesn't have a corporate venture capital unit. We can't be growing at the rate we need to without that. We have so many, our team, probably 99% of the organisation is focused on the in-year delivery. And if we don't carve out that 1%, probably less than 1%, but a small percentage of the business to focus on the long term, we're going to sort of get there and we won't have anything to deliver to our shareholders. So I think, one, that shows a great job that the team have done to engage senior leaders. Two, that the senior leaders are receptive to that and they get it enough to support us. And I think the third one too is this idea that we want, and the typical mindset within consumer goods is, oh, they're a competitor, they're doing the same thing, we have to do it better, or they cut them out. Whereas I think within what I'm learning within venture capital, it's more about going together and having more UK FTSE companies focused on innovation and partnering on these complex business challenges and trying to solve them. And I think that's what great events like this are around, connecting people, and I hope to meet lots of people who are working on the same thing. And then that importance of commitment to the long term, right, and not just being so fixated on the short term, because you need that team that are carved out. I think another focus of us has been how we add value to BAT is finding those partners who can support the growth of our companies. When we invest in portfolio companies, that's something they fed back to us that they want. They really want the access to what they perceive to be as the expertise of BAT. And I think it sounds really simple on paper. You connect the startup to the corporate. That's our job. But I think I learned a little bit about this in my previous company, S6 Ventures, which was the growth arm of AB InBev. That's really challenging. You've got two completely different cultures. You've got and again, you're all living this day to day, the corporate, which moves slowly. You probably have 10 people doing the job that one person does in a startup. You've got process bureaucracy, and then you have the entrepreneurs who want to move fast and chaotic. And I think finding the good stuff between those is really powerful, but it's also really hard. And I think as a BTV team, we're good at that. That's something that the whole team have learned in the past 5 years. But we also need to connect the BAT expertise too. And that's the interesting part, where how do we find the diamonds in the rough, or the people that can embrace some of the startup to connect to, the corporate to connect to the startup. So that's an interesting way we're trying to bring more value to both businesses, is being that intermediary between the startup and the corporate.
Well, I was going to say, Annie, that's really interesting to see you really double-clicking down on that value-add piece that the entrepreneurs are looking for. Are there any other things that you're doing to help support those portfolio companies? And perhaps the second part of the question, what types of companies would you actually look for as you start to think about the second half of the year?
Yeah, good question. So I think if our portfolio companies are here, I think unanimously they say they really enjoy working with BTV because they're supportive, collaborative people who they genuinely committed to growing their business. And I think, having been at BAT for only 2.5 years, that's a company-wide trend. Results focused, but highly collaborative, and it makes showing up to work really nice. I think I'll embarrass Lukasz, who's sitting in front of me as our Chief Investment Officer. I think we push them and challenge them a little bit when they share their numbers or their forecasts. I think we're sort of pushing them and stretching them a little bit further, which is not a bad thing. One of the ways we want to add more value, and again, it's that expectation of a big corporate with strategic muscle invests in us, we can tap into XYZ. And one of those XYZs is, especially in the US, we've got a very strong retail and trade team. Our US is sort of a circa $7 to $8 billion business, calling on multiple convenience and gas stations. We've invested in consumer product goods brands like Awake, a caffeinated chocolate, or More Labs, which is a functional shots brand, who would love access to that capability. But if you think about our field sales teams are calling on brands which generate hundreds of millions of revenue a year versus the small chocolate brand which is doing $1 million a year in the US. So it's understandable that the teams are focusing on the core brands, but our challenge is how do we try and marry those two things, because whilst those cigarette brands represent a considerable revenue now, that's declining. And if we see this as the future, there has to be some sort of balance between what's delivering revenue here and now versus what the future could look like. Where we have had success is with one of our Brazilian protein snacking brands, Mais Miu, and the real difference between where we've had success and where we're looking for more is the business pull. Brazil is a really interesting market because they have a strong cigarette business that's declining, but the regulatory environment means that the reduced risk products like the pouches, the heated sticks, isn't a viable option for people to transition to. So it means, how does our business grow? The cigarette is declining, the regs don't allow for other products to be available. They're pulling on BTV to say, well, you've got a company in Brazil, we've got a distribution network, why don't we tap in that the same product is being sold in the same place, albeit in a different location in the store? How do we bring that together? So I think that's the key learning, is trying to generate the business pull. And then back to that point on how we'll be more successful, if more people know what we're doing, the value we add in the long term, that can really help create that pull. Because at the moment, because we're operating so far out, it's quite difficult for our colleagues to connect to. So that's something we're working on. And then the second part of your question, I think Fund 1 was about more exploratory investments. We had a broad mandate that allowed for kind of flexibility, and we have 27 direct investments in sustainability, consumer packaged goods, technology to support our smokeless business. I think what Fund 2 is going to prioritise on is doubling down on the wellbeing and stimulation, which is functional food and drinks, but also opening up to support our smokeless transformation agenda. So supporting products in the nicotine transformation space, but also areas of the business around digital, sustainability, packaging. So we've kept it intentionally quite broad, and my job has really been to get the execs and the leadership to agree to the what and the why, which is that part, and then leave us alone, and then the team do the how, right? Because I think, and that flex, if they agree to this, it's really helpful to get their support, but we kind of want to eliminate the noise. So the Fund 2, the work we've been doing is really about kind of creating a high alignment on the execs, but also high autonomy model with our team so we can crack on. So Fund 2 is going to be probably, it'll be a mixture of check sizes and different stages of companies depending on where we invest. If we think about BAT's core capabilities, that might be slightly maturer investments, but where we're not a market leader and more of a market entrance, we'll probably be going earlier and trying to get into rounds as a follower.
fascinating. You can see why I was quite so excited in the prep call when Annie laid out some of this vision. It's really powerful, I think, what she's trying to achieve and with the team. So very briefly, we're out of time. Can you give us a one line?
Ooh.
What does success look like for you and for BAT?
Okay. So I'm used to thinking about success within a 1-year timeline because I'm sales and it's the 1-year plan. So I'm learning the 7 to 10 year horizon. I think if I fast forward 5 years, 10 years maybe, I would love for BAT to have a sizable revenue stream of what we call well-being and stimulation, so functional food and drinks. Would love for a BTV portfolio company to be a part of that, as well as our organic brands. And I think for the whole business to truly see the value that BTV can bring to BAT through something tangible. I think at the moment we've done a great job of explaining and telling, but the fund's still, it's in its 5th year, really, with most investments in their 3rd, 4th year. So we haven't got that tangibility. And I think that'll be a really strong signal to the value we can bring and will bring in the future as well.
Well, excited. Wish you luck and let us know how we can help.
Thank you, Jane. Appreciate it. Thank you.